On the day of the wedding, my childhood friend publicly called off her marriage and confessed her love to me. I knew it. She had been reborn. In her previous life, she fell in love with an illegitimate child, but he deceived her, both body and heart. He and her stepsister schemed to take away her family's fortune. It wasn't until her dying moments that she realized the person who truly loved her was me. But in this life, I was reborn too. Chapter 1. I was reborn on the very day of Natalie's wedding. The church was pure and solemn, and the piano music from the band was elegant and pleasant, exactly the style Natalie loved the most. I sat in the audience, my gaze heavy as I watched Natalie on stage. She was wearing a white, floor-length wedding gown, her veil partially covering her beautiful face. Her makeup was exquisite, making her look even more stunning today. Her lips curved into a smile, full of the joy of marrying for love, and standing opposite her was the groom, my father's illegitimate son and the man Natalie had loved for over 10 years, Daniel. She had once told me that Daniel gave her a different kind of feeling, that life among the wealthy was too suffocating, and only the simple porridge Daniel made for her gave her a sense of warmth. And today, Natalie was bringing all her mother's inheritance into her marriage with Daniel. The wedding proceeded like a well-rehearsed performance until the officiant asked Natalie if she was willing to take her vows. Suddenly, her expression changed. She rushed off the stage in a panic, her long wedding gown almost tripping her, but she scrambled forward, as if terrified of losing something. I watched her calmly as she dashed toward me, and just before her delicate fingers touched me, I stepped aside. Her eyes dimmed for a moment, but she quickly lifted her head, pretending to be strong. Her eyes, reddened with emotion, gazed at me deeply. Gabe, I regret it. I just want to be with you. I love you, and I know you love me too. I glanced at Daniel, who had chased after her, my voice cold and resolute. Sister-in-law, please respect yourself. With that, I turned and left without looking back. Natalie cried out, trying to catch up with me, but the long train of her wedding gown tangled around her. Her freshly minted husband grabbed her hand, preventing her from getting even an inch closer to me. Chapter 2. I knew, without a doubt, that Natalie had been reborn just like me. In her previous life, Natalie had fallen in love with Daniel. She dropped out of school for him, had an abortion, and even broke off our engagement to marry my father's illegitimate son. Despite her family's disapproval, her mother had died early, leaving her a vast inheritance that she would receive upon marriage. Daniel needed a lot of money to overthrow the Song family, so he deliberately seduced Natalie. They started dating secretly in high school. Their first taste of love led to a child. Daniel coaxed her into having an abortion, and she agreed, but the procedure left her unable to have children ever again. After she broke off our engagement, I quietly watched over her. Her stepmother and stepsister bullied her and refused to give her money, so I would send her gifts and cash, doing everything I could to make her smile, only to watch her run back to Daniel. Back then, I thought love didn't necessarily mean possessing someone, it could mean protecting them. But Natalie, she told me, Gabe, to me, you're like a brother, the best brother in the world. Yet behind my back, she would casually say to her group of friends, Gabriel, he's just a dog that comes when I call and leaves when I dismiss him. Later, after she married Daniel, she stole my research results to give to him. My company's new product, which was about to launch, became Daniel's, and my company suddenly found itself in crisis. Meanwhile, Daniel soared to success with my work, becoming a rising star in the business world. He showed no mercy in taking down my company, and even sought revenge on my mother. Like a madman, he stormed into her hospital room and snarled at my bedridden mother. It's all your fault that my mother and I suffered so much ridicule and humiliation. My mom and dad were true love, the one who wasn't loved was the mistress. You and Gabriel both deserve to die. My gravely ill mother was so infuriated by Daniel's words that she passed away. And Daniel, mad with power, sent people to kill me, but I narrowly escaped. My company was not yet finished. I still had ways to rise again. But Natalie invited me to meet her on the rooftop of an 18-story building. With tears streaming down her face, she sobbed, Gabe, I'm sorry, but if I don't do this, my husband will leave me. I'm sorry, Gabe. I was the one who stole your research results. If there's a next life, I won't do this again. With that, she violently pushed me off the roof. I looked at her in shock and sadness, not even able to utter a single word. After my death, Daniel didn't cherish Natalie as she had hoped. Instead, he accused her of murdering me, and the evidence against her was solid. Natalie was sent to prison, where her stepsister, Fiona, visited her with a pregnancy test in hand, sneering, "What made you think Daniel would ever love a woman who can't have children? Let me tell you the truth, Daniel has always loved me. While you were falling out with your family for him, we were spending time together at hotels. You even stole Gabriel's research results for him. You're really stupid, aren't you? The only person who ever treated you well was Gabriel. And not only did you harm him, you killed him." Natalie's expression grew more and more lifeless, and in the end, she took her own life in prison. I watched her fate unfold with cold detachment. I never expected that when I opened my eyes again, heaven would give me a second chance. This time, I won't misjudge people again and mistake worthless stones for precious gems. Chapter 3. After leaving the church, I headed straight to the hospital. In the hospital room, I looked at my mother's pale yet loving face, and I couldn't help but feel my eyes well up. In my previous life, she had been on the mend, but Daniel barged into her room and shouted all kinds of twisted nonsense, worsening her condition. In the end, she passed away despite all efforts to save her. Her voice was soft and gentle. "Gabe, what's wrong? Weren't you at the wedding?" I sat by her bed, holding her hand, smiling faintly. I shook my head and quietly explained, "It wasn't important, so I left." Mother's gaze suddenly became a little sad. She sighed and said, "Gabe, some things and some people just aren't meant to be forced. Natalie isn't right for you. You need a partner who can stand by your side as an equal, not a child who never grows up." I understood what she meant and nodded. I promised her, "Mom, I understand. I've given up on Natalie. I won't repeat the same mistakes." Mother's frail hand gently patted mine, a silent gesture of comfort. My nose tingled, and I quickly excused myself, claiming I had work to attend to. "This time, no one will be able to hurt you again, Mother." Since moving her was not an option due to her condition, and this hospital was already the best in the country, I hired 10 bodyguards from a security company to stand watch over her in shifts. I made sure that no one except doctors and nurses could get anywhere near her, not even a fly. After taking care of that, I returned to my company. The top floor housed my research lab, where I had gathered biotechnology experts from all over the country. At that moment, my research was just one step away from success. Using my knowledge from my previous life, I finished compiling the results in less than 2 hours. The research combining biology and technology was something I had been working on since high school. In my previous life, I developed the most compatible data for the human body. This technology would allow humans to integrate with an AI brain, achieving true connectivity where the human mind could perform tasks like a computer. In my previous life, Daniel only managed to steal my results. He rushed to release the AI brain ahead of me, causing my company to lose billions in investments and sending my shares plummeting. However, he couldn't develop the necessary firewall. I had deliberately delayed releasing my findings because the final encryption for the firewall hadn't been set up yet. But Daniel, always hasty and reckless, never realized that. At first, the limited release of the AI brain earned him widespread fame, but as more people started using it, the lack of firewall coding allowed hackers to break through. Many users were harmed, some experienced brain data leaks, while others suffered brain death. Several prominent figures, even government officials, were affected, and Daniel's reputation took a nosedive. At that time, I had developed the firewall code and was planning to make a comeback, but Natalie tricked me into going to the rooftop, where she killed me. The experts in the lab were ecstatic upon seeing my completed results. "Boss, you're a genius. You finished the coding in under 2 hours. Oh, my God, Mr. Song, you're as fast as God himself." I shook my head with a smile. The remaining progress had been researched in my previous life with the help of these experts. In this life, I simply rode the wave of memories from my past. Chapter 4. That evening, our entire lab went out to celebrate. In a private room of a fancy restaurant, the experts, drunk and embracing one another, were elated that the years of research had finally borne fruit. Using the excuse of needing a cigarette, I left the room. To my surprise, I bumped into Natalie on the balcony. Natalie and her group of friends were having dinner, and her voice was loud. Just as I was about to leave, I heard her say, "Anyway, in this life, I'll only marry Gabriel. You all need to help me figure out a plan." One of her friends chimed in, "With a face as stunning as yours, even I, a girl, can't resist. How could he be indifferent?" Another friend added, "He's probably just jealous of you marrying Daniel. Just go coax him. He's pampered you for so many years. He'll definitely soften up." A third friend suggested, "Why not just take it to the next level and sleep with him? How could he back out after that?" I listened to their conversation, my face growing colder. I couldn't believe how blind I had been in my past life. Birds of a feather flock together. Natalie had no integrity, and neither did her friends. Just as I was about to leave, I heard a familiar voice. "Gabe." I turned around, my face still stern, and Natalie threw herself into my arms. She looked up at me, her face pitiful, and said, "Gabe, why aren't you saying anything? Are you still mad at me?" I pried her off me and coldly replied, "Natalie, you are now Daniel's wife." Hearing that, her eyes lit up. She clung to me, her voice suddenly filled with excitement. "Gabe, are you jealous? Please don't be jealous. Okay, I've already called off the wedding. In this life, I'll only marry you." Her voice was artificially sweet, and she rubbed herself against me as she spoke. Her ridiculous words made me laugh bitterly, and I couldn't help but ask, "What makes you think I'd marry a woman who's already been divorced?" She fell silent, speechless. She stammered, unable to refute me. At that moment, Daniel and her stepsister Fiona suddenly appeared. "Natalie, you just got your marriage certificate with Daniel, and now you're already looking for another man." Fiona was indignant, and Daniel's face darkened. He grabbed Natalie and angrily said to me, "Gabriel, she's my wife, your sister-in-law." Natalie clung to my sleeve, refusing to let go. I yanked my arm free in disgust and said coldly, Then keep an eye on your wife. Don't let her out to make a fool of herself. And as for the term sister-in-law, neither of you are worthy. I didn't want to waste any more time with them, so I pushed past her and prepared to return to the private room. Just as I was about to open the door, I heard a soft laugh. I turned to see a woman in a red dress watching me with interest. Beside her stood another woman dressed in white, her face a masterpiece crafted by the hands of God himself, every feature perfectly sculpted. Her face showed no expression, as cold and pure as a snow lotus blooming atop a snowy peak. She glanced at me indifferently before her gaze shifted away, as if I was of no consequence. Slightly intrigued, I pushed open the door and entered the room, not giving it much further thought. Chapter 5. Natalie came to the company every day to find me, but the security guards and receptionists repeatedly blocked her at the door. One time, I happened to witness the scene as I was coming downstairs. Do you know who I am? I'm your boss's wife. How dare you stop me? I'll have Gabe fire all of you, she shouted. She was carrying a delicate lunchbox and had light makeup on, just the way she thought I liked. Growing up together, she believed she knew my preferences inside and out. She dressed like a college student, thinking I loved her most in her purest form. As I walked over, Natalie rushed toward me as soon as she saw me. She sneered at the receptionist and security guards, saying, "Gabe's here to pick me up himself. Just wait and see, I'll make sure he fires you." I pulled my arm out of Natalie's grasp and calmly said to the security guard, "If there are people causing disturbances and affecting the company's atmosphere, just throw them out. If they keep harassing us, call the police." With that, I walked away without sparing Natalie even a glance. Her lips trembled as she bit down on them, her eyes filling with tears. She grabbed onto me again, unwilling to give up. In a low voice, she asked, "Do you really not like me anymore? You've loved me for so many years." A cold smile curved my lips as I replied mockingly, "I must have been blind." I shook her off and quickly walked away. I couldn't understand how she could act so shamelessly, still thinking she could be with me after she destroyed my entire life for another man and even killed me before I died in my previous life. Knowing that the research project I had worked on for nearly 10 years had been handed over to Daniel for her foolish love had already extinguished any love I once felt for her. I also knew that taking revenge on a woman whose mind was consumed by love was useless. The real person who harmed me was Daniel, and in this life, I won't let him off. I will make sure his end is far more miserable than mine in the past. There was still one final piece missing for the firewall code, the last encryption key. Only one tech company in the entire country possessed this top-tier technology, and today, I was going to visit the big shot behind that company. In my previous life, I tried to figure it out on my own, believing I could turn things around. But after researching it in this life, I realized I needed that final key, and only by tech owned it. If I could secure the rights and technology, our company could launch the AI brain at full speed with absolute security. That's why I chose to collaborate. I'd heard that this big shot had a daughter he treasured like a gem. I came prepared, carrying a sapphire and jade necklace that I had spent billions on at an auction, hoping to make the right impression. When the door to his house opened, I was stunned for a moment. The woman standing before me was the same white-clad beauty I had seen at the restaurant. Her face was bare of any makeup but still stunningly beautiful. Her long, smooth hair was casually braided over one shoulder, giving her an even softer appearance. She looked at me, her eyes flashing briefly, and spoke in a calm voice, "Who are you?" For some reason, I felt nervous. Straightening my posture, I replied, "I'm Gabriel. I have an appointment with Mr. By today." She nodded and stepped aside to let me in. She wore a simple house dress, revealing her slender ankles, as she walked ahead of me to lead the way. Mr. By's home was not luxurious. Instead, it exuded an ancient and modest atmosphere, not what one would expect from the head of a tech company. I guessed that the woman in front of me must be his daughter, and strangely, I felt even more nervous. Mr. By was practicing calligraphy in his study. When I arrived, he set down his brush and warmly invited me in. I handed him the gift box and said, "This is my first visit. I've heard that you have a beloved daughter, so I brought this. I hope it's to your and your daughter's liking." Mr. By looked at me with approval, nodded, and handed the necklace to the beauty beside him with a loving smile. "Mr. Song, you've been very thoughtful. This is my precious daughter, Luciana." "Lucy, this is Mr. Gabriel, the CEO of Zeus Tech. You two young people will probably have more to talk about. Go ahead. You young folks should chat." With that, Mr. By returned to his calligraphy practice. Luciana put the gift away and then walked toward me, her voice cool and emotionless, her beautiful face tense. "I know why you're here. Let's talk." Mr. By didn't look up as he added, "The firewall key's rights are with Lucy, not me. She developed it while she was abroad. This old man knows nothing about it." I nodded. "Thank you, Mr. By." I followed Luciana into another room. As soon as I stepped inside, she closed the door behind us. I felt my nerves increase and couldn't bring myself to look at her, so I lowered my head. I heard her calm voice, "Marry me, have children with me, and let me become a shareholder in Zeus. Then I'll give you the rights." Shocked, I looked up at her, only to see her gaze fixed elsewhere. She wasn't looking at me, but her ears and neck were already flushed red. Her beautiful face was tense, but I could see her slight trembling. Chapter 6. Luciana became my fiancée. News of our upcoming engagement quickly spread, serving as a prelude to the partnership between Bytech and Zeus. We planned to hold a press conference for the AI Brains release following the wedding hype. After internal testing, the product would be ready for market. When I was on my way to the hospital to tell my mother about my upcoming wedding, I saw Natalie at the door of the hospital. She was wearing a little white dress and crouched on the ground, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw me, she looked up with a vulnerable expression. "Gabe, are you really getting engaged?" Her voice cracked, and tears started falling as soon as she spoke. I nodded, expressionless. "Who's Luciana? I've never heard of her before," she said bitterly. "Gabe, are you still mad at me? Did you pick some nobody just to spite me?" I wondered if she had lost her mind. Instinctively, I defended Luciana. "Watch your words. Miss Bai will soon be a shareholder and the lead scientist at Zeus. She doesn't need you to know who she is." "You gave her shares," Natalie screamed. "You never gave me any." I looked at her, speechless, and walked into the hospital room. She tried to follow me, but the bodyguard stopped her. Just then, I received a call from Luciana. "Gabriel, I'm near the hospital. May I visit your mother?" "Where are you?" "I'll come get you," I said as I turned around and started walking out. Natalie, like an unwanted shadow, followed closely behind. When I met Luciana at the hospital entrance, I suddenly realized this was only the third time I had seen her. Today, she was dressed in a formal suit, looking very professional. Her face remained expressionless, and she simply nodded at me when she saw me. I noticed she was holding 2 fruit baskets, so I took them from her. When my hand accidentally brushed against hers, I realized she was trembling slightly. I found it amusing and strangely endearing how she maintained her calm exterior while secretly being nervous. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to make conversation to ease her nerves. She replied softly, "I was having lunch with friends nearby and remembered your mother is here." I nodded. I had mentioned it to her before, but neither of us was much of a talker, so we walked in silence. Then suddenly, Natalie appeared again. Her eyes were red as she looked at me with the same gaze one would give to a cheating scoundrel. She pointed at me and Luciana, her voice frantic. "Is it her? What's so great about her? Gabe, don't throw your life away just to spite me. You didn't marry her in our previous life either. Are you reborn too? Gabe, I love you." I was about to ignore her and walk away when Luciana glanced at me and asked in confusion, "Isn't this the inpatient department, not the psychiatric ward?" I couldn't help but smirk and nodded. "Indeed. Strange." Natalie rushed toward us, and I quickly shielded Luciana behind me, glaring at Natalie in anger. "Natalie, stop this madness. You're scaring my fiancée. Am I not prettier than her? We've grown up together. I'm your childhood sweetheart." Natalie's tears streamed down her face. "We've had 20 years of affection, and you've loved me for so long. I love you too. Why have you suddenly changed? Have you been seduced by that homewrecker?" "Watch your mouth," I said, my voice stern. "If you keep insulting my fiancé, I won't let this go." At that moment, Luciana peeked out from behind me and spoke, her tone even more confused. "I remember now. I saw her at the restaurant. Didn't she get married?" I found her even more endearing at that moment, and my anger subsided significantly. I didn't want to argue with Natalie anymore. Without thinking, I reached out and held Luciana's hand. The moment I did, I felt her stiffen for a second. I was about to let go and apologize when she squeezed my hand back. "Let's go. We shouldn't waste time," she said, without looking at Natalie or asking me anything about her. By now, the commotion had attracted the attention of a few security guards. They restrained Natalie, and I led Luciana away, whispering, "All right." In the elevator, it was just the two of us. My palms were sweating from nervousness, but Luciana didn't pull her hand away. She asked me quietly, her voice barely hiding her tension, "What kind of girl does your mother like?" "My mom likes whatever I like," I replied, staring at the ad screen in the elevator, my voice unexpectedly dry. "Oh," she whispered. Chapter 7. My mother really liked Luciana. Her health had been improving recently, and she was now able to sit up and eat on her own. She and Luciana were chatting about everyday things. Although Luciana didn't speak much, she still responded to my mother and would occasionally share amusing stories to make her laugh. Luciana's mother passed away when she was very young, so she grew up by her father's side. I could tell that she really enjoyed talking to my mother. In just one day, she had said more to my mom than she had to me in the 3 times we'd met. As I peeled some fruit nearby, I saw my mother open the small box she always carried with her. Inside was a translucent jade bracelet inlaid with purple gold, an heirloom from my grandmother and incredibly valuable. Luciana, flustered, shook her head and waved her hands. It was the first time I'd seen her so panicked. Her eyes sought help from me, but I smiled and said, "Go ahead and take it. My mom has been saving this for her daughter-in-law." Unable to refuse my mother's kindness, Luciana reluctantly put on the bracelet. I knew why she felt awkward accepting it. It was because our marriage was a contractual one. Mr. Bai, her father, was growing older and had been diagnosed with early-stage liver cancer. He didn't want to pass away without seeing his daughter married and holding a grandchild. So he had been pushing for Luciana to go on blind dates. Luciana had no choice. And when she ran into me, someone she already remembered from the restaurant, she saw an opportunity. I, on the other hand, needed something from her. So we agreed to get married, have a child, and once the baby was born, we would divorce. For me, it was a win-win deal, so I agreed immediately. After all, we were going to get married, so I shared my family background with her, how my parents divorced, and I stayed with my mother, and how I built my own company. My company was my creation from the ground up. My father was what you'd call a phoenix man, and when he divorced my mother, he took most of her assets and reunited with his mistress and their son. After that, my mother became depressed, which led to her illness and hospitalization. With my grandfather's financial support, I founded my company and grew it to surpass my father's Song Corporation. Since my mother stopped managing it, Song Corporation has been teetering on the edge, which is why Daniel, who had just taken over, hated me so much. He was obsessed with surpassing me, as if that would somehow erase the fact that he was an illegitimate child. To top it off, he found Natalie, a woman who just got their marriage certificate, and was already plotting to cheat on him with me. Gabe, go see Lucy off, my mother said to me. You've got things to take care of, so don't worry about me. I nodded and agreed. As soon as we left the hospital room, Luciana grabbed my hand, and for the first time, I saw a slightly anxious frown on her face. That Natalie, is she really your childhood friend? I looked down at her and nodded. She must have heard something from my mom. Do you still like her? Luciana asked, suddenly turning her head away, her voice surprisingly tinged with frustration. I don't want my husband thinking about another woman. If you still like her, let's call off the engagement. I won't give you the rights either. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I led her to the parking garage. When we reached my car, she looked at me in surprise. You, she began, but I interrupted her. Get in the car. Let's go eat, I said. She fell silent and got into the passenger seat, staring out the window. Buckle your seatbelt. She turned to me, her expression a bit odd. I pretended not to notice. She let out a small sigh, fastened her seatbelt, and then turned her gaze back to the window. I smiled to myself. Finally, on the third glance she cast my way, I broke the silence. I don't like her anymore. She blinked, waiting for me to continue. So I added, I used to. But after she got together and married my father's illegitimate son, I stopped. Oh, her voice was calm, but when I glanced over at her, I noticed a small smile playing on her lips. What did she mean by reborn? She asked again, half joking, half serious. I replied, exactly what it sounds like. In my previous life, I was betrayed by those I trusted, but I've been reborn in this life, and I'm back for revenge, determined to take back everything that was mine. Want to hear more? Pay me $50, and I'll tell you all about my plan for vengeance. As we stopped at a red light, I felt something soft and delicate touch my hand. I turned to look at the owner of the hand, but Luciana had already turned her head away, acting as though nothing had happened. I smiled, grasping her hand in return. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive, but I could tell Luciana was in a much better mood. Chapter 8. On the day of our engagement party, Luciana wore the white custom-made dress I had given her. The styling enhanced her already otherworldly beauty. When I saw her, the first words that slipped from my mouth were, "You look beautiful." She pretended not to hear me and tried to walk past, but I pulled her by the waist, deliberately teasing her. She looked up at me, blinking her big, innocent eyes. I felt a sudden impulse to kiss her lips, but just then, the door to the lounge opened. The person who entered was familiar, the woman in the red dress from the restaurant. Today, she was dressed in a subtle Chanel-style short skirt. When she saw us, she exaggeratedly exclaimed, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have come in here. I'm going to get an eyeful." I looked down at my blushing fiancé and reluctantly let her go. I nodded at the woman and then left the lounge. Today, I would be signing the share transfer agreement, giving Luciana 6% of Zeus's shares. It was originally supposed to be 3%, as I only held 20% myself, but I changed my mind at the last minute. I didn't want a contractual marriage anymore. I actually wanted to stay with Luciana for the long term. The banquet began, and Luciana and I made the rounds, toasting our guests. Many business elites from the capital had come, along with some of my grandfather's friends and Mr. Bai's associates. My grandfather also attended. He'd always had high hopes for me, even though he was still upset that my mother broke ties with him to marry a poor man. I respected him deeply, which is why I let him hold a large portion of my company's shares. He gazed at Luciana and me, nodding in satisfaction. Just then, a waiter spilled red wine, staining Luciana's custom-made white gown with a large red blotch. The waiter apologized repeatedly, but as she looked up, I caught a fleeting, triumphant smirk on her face. It was Natalie. She knelt on the ground, wiping at Luciana's gown with a dirty cloth. Luciana's expression grew cold, and she called over the floor manager. The room fell silent, and everyone turned to watch us. At that moment, my assistant rushed over to me and whispered something in my ear. The AI brain had launched. It was Song Corporation. I looked down at Natalie, who was crying and accusing the rich of bullying her. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. I had always thought she was just foolish, but I never realized how truly malicious she was. In my past life, I had loved this woman for over 10 years. I took off my jacket and wrapped it around Luciana's waist, covering most of the stain. I leaned in and whispered to her, "I prepared 2 dresses for you. Go to the lounge and change." She nodded, glancing once at the crying Natalie before leaving with her friends. The party resumed, as if nothing had happened. I crouched down and said to Natalie, "You used such a petty trick to disgust me and my fiancé. I won't let this go." Natalie lifted her head and scoffed. "You've been reborn, haven't you? You know what I did in the last life, don't you? Since you don't love me anymore, I don't need to pretend with you. Your company is about to go bankrupt again, just like in the last life." I looked at her and shook my head with a smile. "You know I've been reborn, so how could I not be prepared for you and Daniel?" Natalie's eyes widened in shock, and I let out a mischievous grin. "You're really pitiful. Even after being reborn, you still chose to rely on a man. When you failed to win me back, you threw yourself at Daniel, the same man you humiliated by confessing your love to me during your wedding. Do you really think Daniel will ever forgive you? You embarrassed him in front of everyone. There's no way he'll just let that slide." With that, I turned and walked away to fetch my fiancé, who had changed into another dress. The second dress was a dark green that highlighted Luciana's fair complexion and perfectly complemented her figure. When she stepped out, she drew gasps of admiration. "She's stunning. Miss Bai is gorgeous. Mr. Song is lucky." I nodded and smiled. "Indeed, I'm very lucky to have such a beautiful bride." I leaned down and playfully whispered into Luciana's ear, "Miss Bai, your fiancé's product has just been released by someone else. The company is about to go bankrupt, but it's too late for you to back out now." Luciana looked up at me and, with rare mischief in her eyes, replied, "Then I'll have to break off the engagement by force." I wrapped my arm around her slender waist and smirked. "It's too late." "Oh, poor me," she said seriously, making me laugh. When I handed her the share transfer agreement, Luciana's eyes flickered with surprise. She looked at me, as if to ask whether I had made a mistake. I patted her head and said softly, "Sign it. Since you've boarded my pirate ship, I won't let you suffer." This was 25% of my shares. She bit her lip before signing her name. Chapter 9. Song Corporation rushed to release the AI brain before me, watching Natalie easily retrieve my data from surveillance. Thanks to her memories from the previous life, I couldn't help but wonder if I should laugh at her foolishness. She knew I had been reborn, so how could I leave such important data in the same place as last time, unguarded and easily accessible to her? But unlike the small-scale success in the previous life, Song Corporation's AI brain this time was almost like a half-finished product. It couldn't even connect properly to the brain, and some users experienced severe headaches right after connecting. In an instant, Song Corporation was trending on social media, being ridiculed. At that moment, Zeus Tech released an official lawyer's statement online, declaring that the company's files had been stolen. It accused Song Corporation of using unauthorized code and irresponsibly launching an unfinished product, putting consumers at risk. This became a massive scandal online. Everyone knew about the dispute between Song Corporation and Zeus Tech. At the peak of the buzz, I posted an article under my mother's name. The article clearly detailed how my father, Lucas Song, a Phoenix man, had deceived my mother into getting pregnant before marriage and forced her into marrying him. After their marriage, he cheated on her and emotionally abused her, pushing her into severe depression. Lucas used my mother's dowry to establish Song Corporation. At its height of success, he kicked both my mother and me out, welcoming his mistress and illegitimate son into the home. And the person who stole Zeus Tech's code was none other than the illegitimate son's wife, Natalie, who had exploited our long-standing childhood friendship to sneak into my company and steal confidential files. I even included the surveillance footage as proof. To top it off, someone leaked the video from Natalie and Daniel's wedding, where Natalie publicly called off the wedding and confessed her love to me. The drama of a wealthy family's private affairs was far more captivating to the public than corporate scandals, and in no time, Song Corporation stocks plummeted. Both Daniel and Natalie became targets of public scorn. At 6 p.m., my press conference began. I wore a suit, and beside me, Luciana donned a matching professional outfit. As we faced a sea of flashing cameras, we held hands, and our engagement rings gleamed under the lights. The news of the Zeus by Tech collaboration spread quickly, and it became widely known that Luciana was now the true head of By Tech. During the press conference, Luciana revealed a share transfer document. She had given me 4% of By Tech's shares. By Tech was still much larger than Zeus Tech at the time, so her 4% was worth far more than mine. I looked at her in shock. She bit her lip and said, "I'm already on the pirate ship, so here's my token of sincerity." I took the document and kissed her gently on the cheek. Her ears instantly turned red, and I whispered, "I see your sincerity, my dear fiancé." The reporters went wild with their cameras. Together, Luciana and I introduced the AI brain to the world. I explained the AI brain's capabilities, while she elaborated on the firewall. We presented the world's most secure biotechnology. Online discussions about the AI brain surged to unprecedented levels. Zeus Tech and Bitech became the hottest topics globally. Next came the internal testing phase, and we shared the testing videos online. People's brains connected directly to the internet, allowing them to send messages and browse online with absolute security. When the AI brain officially launched, 1 million chips sold out instantly on the first day. Luciana and I had succeeded. Chapter 10. The day before my wedding to Luciana, I received a call from Natalie. She and Daniel had been on the run, evading arrest, yet they were still hiding in the same city. As she spoke, I used the AI brain to alert the police while recording the conversation. Natalie was crying as she pleaded, "Gabe, I know you're getting married tomorrow. I'm begging you, for my grandmother's sake, please meet with me one last time." Natalie's grandmother had given me a lot of warmth during my childhood. My father never cared about me, and my mother was always sick. On countless difficult nights, it was Natalie's grandmother who took care of me. I had promised her on her deathbed that I would always look after Natalie, which was one of the reasons I had loved Natalie and sacrificed so much for her in my previous life. I sighed heavily and agreed to meet her. Returning to the rooftop where I had died in my previous life, I saw Natalie and Daniel. Daniel's face was scruffy, and he had lost all his former charm. Natalie wore shabby clothes, and her hair looked unkempt. It seemed they had really fallen on hard times. When Natalie saw me, she suddenly started laughing, but as she laughed, tears streamed down her face. "Gabriel, you're still so stupid. If you had chosen me back then, I wouldn't have ended up like this, but your karma is coming soon." Her expression turned cold, and she and Daniel began pushing me step by step toward the old, rusty railing. I stared at them, my face expressionless, as if looking at two lunatics. "I'm just glad I saw your true colors in this life," I said to Natalie. "Even if I had the chance to relive it all, I still wouldn't choose you." I turned to Daniel, mocking him. "Your mother was the mistress, and now you're wearing the same green hat as your father, cheated on by your own wife. It seems you and your mother can't escape your fate as third parties in a relationship. Shut up, you're about to die, and you're still running your mouth." Daniel shouted in a rage. He grabbed my collar. "If it weren't for you, I'd be the rightful heir to the Song family. Why should your mother be the lady of the house while mine was scorned as a mistress? You only have your rich grandfather's help. I'm no less capable than you. Then why do you need a woman's dowry to save Song Corporation?" I retorted, laughing. "You can't succeed without using women to cheat and steal. And now, to kill me, you had to rely on a woman's ploy to lure me here. Daniel, is your success always dependent on women?" Daniel's eyes bulged in anger, and he yelled, "And what about you? Aren't you just marrying the Bai family's daughter? Aren't you just a joke of a live-in son-in-law?" I grinned broadly. "I'm married for love, something you'll never understand. And as for being a son-in-law, at least I married into a powerful family. My wife is the #1 female billionaire on Forbes. Who did you marry? A woman who dropped out of high school for you and couldn't even get into a third-rate college?" "Shut up," Natalie screamed. "Kill him." The next moment, the police stormed in and pinned the two of them to the ground. Suddenly, I felt someone rush toward me, and a familiar figure threw herself into my arms. Her beautiful face was full of worry, her eyes red as she pounded on my chest for the first time without holding back. "Gabriel, were you planning on making me go to the wedding alone tomorrow? How could you do something so dangerous without telling me? Do you think you're invincible? You're supposed to be a good son-in-law. From now on, you'll tell me everything." I held her hands tightly and pulled her into a deep embrace, letting out a contented sigh. "I understand, darling," I whispered. "I won't keep anything from you again." At our wedding, we didn't invite too many people, just close friends and family. Luciana wore a handmade wedding gown designed by an Italian master. She looked like a true angel as Mr. Bai walked her down the aisle toward me. I said my vows with utmost sincerity, and when she looked back at me, just as earnestly saying, "I do," I knew she was the one. My mother, sitting in the front row, covered her face, crying uncontrollably. My grandfather glanced at her, sighed, and patted her shoulder. I wrapped my arms around Luciana and finally kissed those lips I had longed for. In this life, I hadn't loved the wrong person. Epilogue. "Gabriel," Luciana said. Her face flushed as she lay in my arms. "We only have a contractual marriage." I looked at the marks I'd left on her neck, smiling in satisfaction. "Dad told me his liver is fine now." She froze in my arms, her ears turning an even deeper shade of red. I teased her further, saying, "Your best friend told me you fell in love with me at first sight. So was this whole marriage plan really just a scheme to trick me?" The warmth in her body grew even more intense, and I chuckled quietly, kissing her several more times. The sun was shining brightly outside, and in my arms, I held the love of my life.